My sister attacked me out of jealousy in front of my boyfriend. 6 years later, my parents invited her to my bachelorette without permission, and I exposed her in front of everyone, revealing what she did. I'm 28 years old. I got married 3 months ago. And I'm still processing everything that happened at my bridal shower, because basically it was the moment when all the accumulated shit from years with my family exploded in the most public and dramatic way possible. And honestly, I don't regret anything. But I also can't stop thinking about how we got to that point. You know, where I had to expose my younger sister in front of all my friends and family because my parents decided to completely ignore my boundaries. But I guess I should start at the beginning. When Nicole and I were kids and my parents, Sharon and Steven, decided that the best way to raise us was to literally turn everything into a competition. I'm not exaggerating when I say everything was a competition in my house. From who got better grades to who ate breakfast faster, my parents found a way to constantly compare us. My mom was the worst, honestly, always with comments like, "Look how Nicole finished her homework first," or "Olivia got a better grade in math. You should try harder, Nicole." And my dad wasn't any better. He basically applauded this behavior as if he were raising two gladiators instead of sisters. I remember when I was like 10 years old and Nicole was 8. We had a competition of who could clean their room faster. And when I won, my mom gave Nicole a consolation ice cream and told me I shouldn't be so competitive. I mean, seriously? You guys literally created the competition, and now I'm the bad guy for winning. We grew up hating each other, basically. Not in that normal way where siblings fight and then become best friends. No, we genuinely hated each other. I saw her as this person who was always trying to outdo me in everything, and I'm sure she saw me the same way. We never had that beautiful sister relationship you see in movies. We never shared secrets or supported each other in difficult times. It was more like living with a constant enemy who happened to share your last name and your house. And our parents fed into it all the time, always pitting one against the other. Always commenting on who was prettier, smarter, more successful. It was a pretty toxic childhood if I think about it now, but at the time I just thought it was normal. That all families were like that. Things got really bad when we started becoming adults. I left home at 20 to study at university, got a good job after graduating, started building my life. Nicole stayed home longer, like until she was 23 or 24, and never finished her college degree. My parents constantly used me as an example with her, which obviously only made things worse between us. Every time I went to visit them, there was this horrible tension in the air, and my mom didn't miss an opportunity to comment on my professional success while Nicole was sitting there without a stable job. It was uncomfortable for everyone, but they didn't seem to notice or just didn't care. I met Jonathan when I was 22, 6 years before all this drama. He was, and is amazing, super attentive, funny, hardworking, everything I wanted in a partner. After dating for like 6 months, I decided it was time to formally introduce him to my family. They had met him briefly a couple of times, but this was going to be the first official family dinner with him, you know? That important moment where your family really gets to know your boyfriend. I was nervous, obviously, because I knew what my family was like. But Jonathan reassured me and said everything would be fine. The dinner started normal, I guess. My mom made her famous roasted chicken. My dad was being the typical dad, interrogating Jonathan about his job and his life plans, the normal things parents do when they meet their daughter's boyfriend. Nicole was there too. She was like 20 years old at the time, and at first she seemed to be fine. But then something started happening that made my hair stand on end. Nicole started flirting with Jonathan, and not subtly. I mean, it was obvious and blatant. She laughed too loud at his jokes, constantly touched his arm when she talked, leaned toward him in a way that made her cleavage impossible to ignore. And the worst part is that my parents said nothing. They acted like nothing weird was happening. Jonathan, give him credit, completely ignored her. He kept talking to my parents, answering their questions, trying to make a good impression, but I could see he was uncomfortable. He had that, "What's going on here?" look that I knew well. And I was sitting there, feeling angrier and angrier, watching my younger sister basically throw herself at my boyfriend in front of my entire family. After like an hour of this, Nicole literally asked Jonathan if he wanted to go see her room because she had some band posters he would probably like. That's when I lost my patience. I said something like, "Nicole, what the hell are you doing?" And she looked at me with that fake innocence face she always put on when my parents were sitting around and said, I'm just being friendly with your boyfriend, Olivia. Don't be so paranoid. And I, was so angry that the words just came out of my mouth without a filter. I told her, stop acting like a desperate loser. It's pathetic. Yes, I know. It wasn't the most mature thing in the world. But after years of competition and now seeing her try to seduce my boyfriend, something in me just broke. Nicole stood up so fast that her chair almost fell. She started yelling at me, saying things like, I always thought I was better than her, that I always made her feel inferior, that I couldn't stand her getting attention for once in her life. I also stood up and yelled back at her, bringing out years of resentment and frustration. Jonathan tried to calm me down. My parents tried to intervene, but Nicole and I were in our own world of screaming and accusations. And then, out of nowhere, Nicole came at me. She grabbed my hair with both hands and started pulling so hard, I thought she was going to rip out entire chunks. I tried to get her off me, but she was like a possessed person. She slapped me across the face that left my ear ringing and kept pulling my hair while screaming things I don't even remember because I was in total shock. Jonathan pulled her off me, literally had to pick her up and separate her because she wouldn't let go of my hair. My dad finally reacted and helped restrain her, and my mom was screaming but not doing anything useful. Typical. I was standing there with my scalp burning, my cheek red and swollen, and watching my younger sister being held back by my boyfriend and my father while she kept trying to get to me. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Honestly, I looked at my parents, expecting them to say something, to scold her, to acknowledge that what had just happened was completely unacceptable. But my mom just said, "You both need to calm down," as if I had been equally at fault for being physically attacked. Jonathan, and I left immediately. In the car, he kept asking me if I was okay, if I needed to go to the hospital, if I wanted to call the police. And honestly, I was so humiliated and angry that I just wanted to get to my apartment and forget that any of it had happened. The next day, my mom called expecting me to be the one to apologize. She told me I had provoked Nicole, that I knew what she was like, and I shouldn't have said those things. Not a single mention of Nicole physically attacking me, not an apology from her or from my parents. That's when I made the decision to cut contact with Nicole completely. I told my mom I didn't want to see my sister again, that I wouldn't be at any family event where she was, and that what had happened was unforgivable. My parents thought I was overreacting, obviously. For the next few months, they tried to convince me to make peace with Nicole, but I didn't give in. 6 years passed. 6 complete years without talking to my sister, without seeing her, without knowing anything about her life beyond what my parents occasionally mentioned when I talked to them. And honestly, my life improved so much without her. Jonathan and I got more serious. We moved in together. We built a beautiful life. I advanced in my career. He in his. We were happy. My parents always pressured me to forgive Nicole, but I had drawn that line and wasn't planning to cross it. Like 8 months ago, Jonathan proposed to me. It was perfect. Super romantic, just like I had dreamed. We started planning the wedding immediately, and I was so excited. My friends organized my bridal shower, which was going to be this beautiful afternoon with tea, snacks, fun games, all the traditional but nice stuff. We invited like 30 people, my friends, cousins, some aunts, basically all the important women in my life. I made it very clear to my parents that Nicole wasn't invited, that I didn't want any drama on my special day, and they said they understood. The day of the shower arrived and everything was going amazing. The place was beautifully decorated. There were these pink garlands everywhere. The food was delicious. My friends had made me beautiful gifts. I was genuinely happy, surrounded by people who loved and supported me. And then my parents arrived. And guess who they came with? Yes, Nicole. The 3 of them walked in like nothing, as if they hadn't specifically told me she wasn't invited. I saw Nicole and felt my heart jump out of my chest, not from excitement, but from pure fury and betrayal. My friends immediately noticed that something was wrong because my face must have been something else. My mom approached me with this fake smile and said, "Surprise! We told Nicole to come so you two can finally work things out. It's your wedding. You should be united at such an important moment." And I could only look at her thinking, did you really just do this? Did you really just ambush me at my own bridal shower? Nicole was standing there in the back, looking at the floor, clearly uncomfortable but not saying anything. My close friends knew the story. They knew why I wasn't talking to Nicole. But many of the guests had no idea and were there looking at us confused, feeling the tension but not understanding where it was coming from. I made a decision in that moment. If my parents were going to do this, if they were going to bring Nicole to my private event against my explicit wishes, then I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly why I didn't want my sister there. I stood up, asked for all the guests' attention, and literally told the complete story of what had happened 6 years ago. I told them how Nicole had flirted with my boyfriend in front of my entire family, how it had escalated into a fight where I said something hurtful but true, and how she responded by physically attacking me, pulling my hair and slapping me. I told them how my parents never held her accountable, how they expected me to just get over it, and how that's why I had made the decision to have no contact with her for 6 years. The silence that followed was brutal. You could literally hear a pin drop. Nicole was crying, my parents were furious, and all my guests were in total shock. My Aunt Betty, who is my mom's sister and was there present, looked especially surprised. She had always been good to me. And the truth is, she didn't know all the details of what had happened because my parents had basically minimized the whole incident when they mentioned it to extended family. They told everyone that Nicole and I had a sisterly fight, without giving details about the physical attack or the flirting with Jonathan. My parents pulled me out of the room, like literally grabbed my arm and took me to a private room. My dad told me that what I had just done was completely inappropriate, that I had humiliated Nicole in public, that I was being cruel and vindictive. My mom was crying, saying that I had always been so hard on my sister, that Nicole had made a mistake years ago, and I couldn't let it go. And I just looked at them thinking, are you seriously doing this? Are you seriously scolding me for exposing the truth when you were the ones who brought the person who attacked me to my bridal shower against my explicit wishes? I told them to leave, to get Nicole out of there, and that I didn't want to see them for the rest of the event. They left furious, taking Nicole with them. I went back to the shower and, I'm not going to lie, the atmosphere was weird, but my close friends did an amazing job trying to save the day. They put on music, started playing games, hugged me and told me I had done the right thing. Several of the guests who didn't know the full story came up to me afterwards to tell me they completely understood why I didn't want Nicole there, and that my parents had been completely out of line. The rest of the afternoon was better. We managed to have some fun, but that moment definitely overshadowed what should have been a perfect day. 2 days later, my Aunt Betty called me. She told me that she had been considering offering Nicole a job at her company, something my parents had been pushing for months because Nicole was still without stable employment and basically lived off the money they gave her. But after hearing the complete story at the bridal shower, Betty told me she had completely changed her mind. She explained that she couldn't in good conscience hire someone who had been violent and who apparently had never taken responsibility for her actions or apologized appropriately. She had asked Nicole directly if she had ever apologized to me, and Nicole admitted she hadn't, that she had assumed that with time, things would just work themselves out. When my mom found out that Betty had withdrawn the job offer, she called me hysterical. She yelled at me that I had ruined Nicole's life, that because of me now she had no job opportunities, that I had destroyed her reputation in front of the entire family. She tried to make me feel guilty, saying that Nicole was depressed, that she wasn't eating well, that she cried all the time. And I told her, as calmly as I could muster, that Nicole had ruined her own life when she decided to physically attack me and then never apologize for it. I told her that actions have consequences, and that maybe this would teach Nicole that she can't just assault people and expect everyone to pretend nothing happened. My dad also called me, with his typical, "I'm the father and you should do what I say" tone. He told me I was being unfair, that I was punishing Nicole for something that happened when she was practically a child. She was 20 years old. She wasn't a child. And that I was being stubborn and inflexible. He basically blamed me for all the family's problems, told me I was the one keeping the conflict alive, and that if I would just forgive Nicole, everything would go back to normal. I told him I didn't want his version of normal, where I was expected to put up with whatever Nicole did without consequences. I ended up blocking them both on my phone, on my social media, on email, on everything. I didn't want to hear their manipulations and their denial of reality anymore. I thought that would finally get the message across, but like 3 weeks later, they showed up at my apartment door. All 3 of them, my parents and Nicole. Jonathan was with me when they knocked, and he was already prepared to tell them to leave. But before we could do anything, Nicole started talking. And it wasn't the typical half-assed speech I expected. It was different. She looked genuinely remorseful. Her eyes were red like she had been crying for hours, and her voice trembled when she spoke. She told me she had spent the last few weeks reflecting on everything, that she had gone to therapy. First session, but something is something, and that she finally understood the magnitude of what she had done 6 years ago. She apologized, without excuses, but you also, without trying to justify her actions. She said that flirting with Jonathan had been horrible and inappropriate, that physically attacking me had been unforgivable, and that not apologizing for 6 years had been cowardly on her part. She admitted that she had always been jealous of me, that our parents had put us in a horrible dynamic of constant competition, and that she had let that turn her into a bitter and resentful person. She said she understood if I could never forgive her, that she didn't expect to be invited to my wedding, and that she just wanted me to know that she was completely responsible for everything that had happened. My parents were standing there, clearly uncomfortable, because this version of an apology wasn't the one they had planned. You could see they expected Nicole to say something more generic, something that shared the blame, but she didn't. She took complete responsibility, and that was something I had never seen from her. I stood there for what seemed like an eternity, just looking at her, processing her words. Jonathan squeezed my hand, letting me know he would support me in whatever decision I made. And the truth is that something in her apology felt real. It felt sincere in a way I had never experienced with Nicole. I told her I appreciated her apology, that I could see it was genuine, but that I needed time to process everything. She nodded, thanked me for listening to her, and turned to leave. But before she could get to the stairs, something in me changed. Maybe it was seeing this person who had been my enemy my entire life finally taking real responsibility. Or maybe it was realizing that I didn't want to carry this resentment for the rest of my life. I told her to stop, and when she turned around with that hopeful but scared look, I told her she could come to the wedding. Not as a bridesmaid or anything, but she could be there. We could try to start over. My parents, of course, thought this meant everything was forgiven and forgotten. They tried to enter the apartment like nothing, acting like we had just had a nice family reconciliation meeting, but I stopped them right there. I told them I was willing to give Nicole another chance because she had done the work of acknowledging her mistakes and truly apologizing, but that they had never done the same. I reminded them how they had fueled our rivalry throughout our entire childhood, how they had minimized Nicole's attack 6 years ago, how they had ambushed me at my bridal shower, and how even now they were still trying to make me feel like I was the problem. I told them that until they could take real responsibility for their part in this whole situation, I had no interest in having a relationship with them. My mom started crying and saying I was being unfair, that they had only wanted the best for both of us, that all families have problems. My dad called me ungrateful and told me I would regret pushing my parents away. Nicole, surprisingly, told them to stop, that I was right, and that they also needed to look at their own behavior. That was probably the most mature thing I had heard from her in my entire life. My parents left furious, but Nicole stayed a few more minutes. We talked a bit, nothing deep, just superficial things, but it was the first normal conversation we'd had in 6 years. Before leaving, she gave me her new phone number and told me that if I ever wanted to talk, she'd be there. The following weeks were weird. Nicole and I started texting occasionally. Nothing intense, just small conversations about random things. She'd send me memes sometimes. I'd ask her how her job search was going. She had gotten something in retail, while she kept looking for something better. It was strange but also nice, I guess. Like discovering a person who had always been there but I had never really known. Jonathan was being amazing through all this, supporting me, but also giving me space to process my feelings at my own pace. My parents, in contrast, were being the opposite of supportive. They sent me a long email because they were still blocked on everything else, basically saying they weren't going to attend my wedding. The email was this huge rant about how I had torn apart the family, how I was being manipulative by forgiving Nicole but not them, how Jonathan was probably filling my head with ideas because I had never been like this with them before. It was basically a bunch of victimization and denial, blaming me and Nicole for all the problems but never admitting that they had contributed to creating this toxic environment. They ended the email saying they hoped I would mature before the wedding and apologize to them, and that only then would they consider attending. I showed Nicole the email. I don't know why. Maybe hoping she'd tell me I was overreacting, or that I should try to fix things with them. But she read the email and just said, "Wow, they really don't get it, do they? That was like huge validation for me, knowing it wasn't just me, that someone else who had grown up in the same house could see how problematic their behavior was. Nicole told me she had also started realizing in therapy how much damage our parents had done by constantly pitting us against each other, and that she completely understood why I didn't want them at my wedding if they couldn't acknowledge their role in all this. The wedding came 3 months after all this craziness. It was beautiful, honestly perfect. Jonathan looked handsome. I felt like a princess. All our friends and family, minus my parents, obviously, were there celebrating with us. And Nicole was there too, sitting discreetly in one of the middle rows, genuinely smiling when Jonathan and I exchanged vows. I'm not going to lie. It was weird seeing her there after so many years, but it also felt right somehow, like we were finally starting to heal something that had been broken for too long. During the reception, Nicole came up to me and Jonathan. She gave Jonathan a quick hug and apologized to him too for what had happened years ago. Jonathan, being the amazing guy he is, told her he appreciated the apology and that he was happy to see that Nicole and I were rebuilding our relationship. It was a nice moment, and I realized that maybe, just maybe, Nicole and I could have some kind of sister relationship after all. Not the perfect Hallmark type, but something real and honest. Now, 3 months after the wedding, Nicole and I see each other like once every 2 weeks for coffee or lunch. It's still a bit awkward sometimes. There are still wounds that are healing, but we're trying. She got a better job a month ago, something in administration that she likes quite a bit, and she's going to therapy regularly. We talk about our childhood sometimes, acknowledging how toxic it all was without blaming each other. It's like liberating to be able to talk honestly about our parents and their mistakes without feeling like we have to defend them or pretend everything was fine. My parents still aren't talking to me, and honestly, I'm at peace with that. I've accepted that maybe they'll never understand or admit their part in this whole destructive family dynamic. Nicole says they contact her constantly asking about me, trying to use her as an intermediary, but she's made it clear to them that she's not going to do that. That if they want to fix things with me, they have to do it directly and with real responsibility. I'm proud of her for setting those boundaries, because I know how difficult it is to go against our parents, especially considering how long she sought their approval. Jonathan and I are amazing. This whole experience actually made us stronger as a couple, I think. He saw all the shit from my family and not only stayed with me, but supported me in every difficult decision I had to make. Sometimes we talk about having kids someday, and when we do, we both agree that we're never going to pit our children against each other like my parents did with Nicole and me. We're going to raise our kids to support each other, not to compete for our love and approval. The other week, Nicole sent me a message that basically said, "Thank you for giving me another chance when I didn't deserve it." I responded that we all deserve second chances when we genuinely do the work to change and grow. And that's the truth, isn't it? It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending everything is perfect now, but about recognizing when someone is making a real effort to be better and deciding if you're willing to be present for that growth. With Nicole, I decided yes. With my parents, at least for now, the answer is no. I don't know how all this will end in the long run. Maybe someday my parents will have their moment of clarity and we can rebuild something. Or maybe not. Maybe Nicole and I will become super close. Or maybe we'll maintain this cautious but friendly relationship we have now. What I do know is that I made the right decisions for me, that I established healthy boundaries, and that I didn't let guilt or social expectations make me accept toxic behaviors just because they came from family. And that, I think, is enough for now.